Welcome to the WinEH podcast. This show is focused on empowering ranchers. Whether you're a seasoned rancher or just getting started, we'll guide you on how to use the infinite banking concept as an alternative way to finance your operations. It's a better way to think about money. Join us as we discuss planning for the future, attracting the next generation, and the art of keeping more money within the family. Here's your hosts, Winnie and Lacey.
All right, today we are joined with RobWunder from Saskatchewan, and I guess he will be honestly one of the first in our own podcast room to really join us and share his journey from start to present. So Rob, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day-to-day to connect with me and also connect with our listeners today, those who are already practicing the infinite banking concept in their lives, and those who are really just taking the time to dive deeper into it. I know a lot of the times we do get requests, it's like, can we talk to someone who's already doing this? We want to just hear a little bit more about them, of what it's truly like. And gratefully, when I approached you to ask, would you be willing to share your story? You were very gracious to say, yes, I'd be willing to do that. So kind of thanking you on behalf of everyone else who's also wanting to hear about this. So, Rob, if you could tell us a little bit about how, what prompted you and what inspired you to look into this, and what was your journey like in discovering this for yourself?
Sure. Thank you very much, Winnie. It's an honor to be here with you today and share my experiences. I'm a big believer in networking and, trying to help our fellow person out. So, it got started through the Working Cows podcast. It was episode 1 of the Working Cows podcast, and Clay Conray interviewed Mary Jo, and I thought, wow, that almost seems too good to be true. But she said in order to work with her, you had to read her book. So I quickly got onto the book, ordered the book, and then read it, and thought, well, I have to go a little further into this and see what it's like here in Canada, because of course her book is in the States. But I read her book and sent her an email, and she said, well, I don't not licensed in Canada, I don't work in Canada, but I can set you up with a colleague, and that colleague was you. So that's kind of how that began.
Yes. And when you got that book, are you by nature just someone who loves to read books?
When I was in school, I would just, a teenager, I would have said, no, I don't like books, don't need them. I got onto audiobooks over 10 years ago, and I listen to books continuously and podcasts, and I'm definitely strive to be a lifelong learner. And so, but reading that book, I just sat down and opened it up, and before you knew it, it was midnight, and I was way into the book, and it was really well written and really spoke clearly to me as a producer, and the characters were very relatable, and that got me thinking, and at the current time, I had a life insurance policy that I had purchased when I was young and working away on the rigs in the Alberta oil field, and I had this life insurance policy. I had no idea how to use it. Had no idea how it was structured. When it sounded like a good idea to have some life insurance on myself for just in case something ever happened, as I farm with my parents and my brother and wives, and so there's a dynamic there, and I just thought, man, I should probably have something of my own, and so I did that, and he had the salesman come out to the rig, and he set up and showed us when you passed, eventually when I passed away, there'd be, this big nest egg of money to go to my, hopefully, family. At that time I was single, and furthest thing away from my mind was having a family. But anyway, I had no idea. That's as much as I really knew about it. Other than that, if you needed to, you could email them. If you're in a long spell, cash flow was tight, you could get them to pause the payments. Other than that, didn't know much about any of it.
Right. And so like, just over a period of time, it just sounds like different seasons in life. I mean, it just what you're looking to focus on just really changes depending on what your focus is at that time. But it sounds like from the start, you were open to the idea of life insurance in general. And I know that because you have a networking nature, I'm sure you come across having some conversations where that's probably the last thing that some people want to talk about.
It is. And, fast forward to today, and I really strongly believe in this and am doing it and all the rest, but I don't like to be, I like to share experience. I don't like to push it onto people, if that makes sense. I just, and so people will say like, okay, well, you're doing that. What's one thing that I could do that you would recommend? And I look at it, and the thing that really, as you say, seasons of life change, and now we have two lovely young children, and I say start a policy on your child, for your child, not on your child, but for your child. And of course, it's like, some people will look at you like that's terrible, and it is depends how you want to look at it, but I look at it as a tool and as a way to create and pass on generational wealth as we go through life, and then have the ability to set them up so not only do our kids have a educational savings plan, but they also each have their own life insurance policy. And when the time comes, I will pass it along to them. And it's not only great from many aspects of it, from, looking way down the road to someday if there's a succession plan or a transition of ownership, that's already started. But, if they want to go to school, or if they want to start their own business, or start a different enterprise and join us on the farm, or however that may look, we're building up a line of credit for them. And because we're starting so young at 0, beginning of life, that really has opportunity for time to build and compound and grow. And so it becomes really something when you get the policies structured correctly, that you can go in there and overfund them, or buy up paid up petitions, I guess would be the technical term, which,
paid up petitions.
Correct. It's a big,
yes.
It turns out, you think, well, I'm only putting in $100 a month, and it's structured to do, I can only buy so much paid up editions, but then over time that really adds up.
To spend a little bit of time in this particular thing that you're talking about as it relates to getting policies for your children, what really spoke to you of doing it this way? Or did you do both, like a registered education savings plan versus something like this for your two little ones?
We ended up doing both just for ease of grandparents wanting to contribute a little bit of money for them, and they clearly understood that path. And then this is a little different. And so it was really quite easy to set up both. And the beautiful thing about this policy is not only like whether they go to school or they don't, it doesn't matter. It's there for their life. That money, like you and Lacey say, you've captured that dollar and you put it to work for them or for you or whoever, but it's working for them for the rest of their lives, right? So hopefully that's a very, very long time from now, but in time, we're building a policy that will leave my great-grandchildren, and the further down the road, there'll be a bigger payout for them.
Yeah, just getting the ball rolling in creating a tailwind of capital that otherwise wouldn't be created, would have to always constantly be started from scratch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we don't need to reinvent the wheel like I believe it was in Mary Jo's book. It's been a while since I've read that. I've loaned it to a couple of friends, and somebody never returned it, but that's okay. I'm happy to do that. But
I like how you're strategically
anyway,
not naming names.
yeah, no, it's all good. But, as you look at transitioning, and I'm very blessed to be a fourth generation farmer and would love to, the big goal is to be able to pass that along to whomever is interested in the family in some aspect. And as you look at the current land values and what things are doing, and, nothing is staying the same, it's all going up. And these are going to become very, a tract of land that a person can make a living on will become almost impossible to buy. As it has the potential to become that way, and this is just one way of kind of offsetting it and also keeping an even playing field, so that at the end of the day, nobody's sitting there going, well, that's not, you one child got this and one sibling got that and I got nothing. Well, no, it's something bigger to pass along, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. Now, just doing a little bit of backtracking here, because obviously when I'm listening to you, I have to do my best, because I have the curse of knowledge, right? I can pick up everything that you're laying down, and there's going to be some people here that are just picking this up for the first time. And so it is quite evident that you have done a lot of, you sat with us for many hours. You've also listened to many things, and you've also, even though you haven't picked up the book in a while, you've obviously done some reading on this. Just for those who are in the process of, again, just doing their due diligence around this, it's helpful to maybe sometimes hear from the other side, like yourself, being a producer. What kept you inspired to keep moving forward with this? I mean, because it is principally based and just philosophy based, quite different than the normal, right? So could you perhaps share what caused you to keep moving forward?
Well, I guess as a producer, as a farmer, as a business owner, you kind of you maybe take a little bit bigger view of things. And so right from the beginning, when we started chatting and then going through your kind of educational program that you guys offer and help, so people just don't go in and buy something and or sign up for a life insurance policy and then have no idea that this is great. Why is it great? Well, because when he says it's great, I don't know, the numbers looked okay, I guess. I don't really know what the numbers meant. All of that stuff, is kind of eliminated. And so you have a really good understanding, and nowhere does it say this isn't going to be a quick get rich quick scheme, right? And it's really not about that. It's more of harnessing money and understanding compounding interest and capturing that dollar. And then honestly, coaching from you guys has been exceptional. I remember the first time I did a paid up edition, I remember when you just said, you just got to try it, Rob. And once you do it once, you'll see it. You'll see it work, and it'll be off to the races. And basically, that's what happened. I did the paid up edition. The money sat there for a while, and then come spring and come time to operate, I was able to pull a loan against my policy, borrow that money back. Meanwhile, that money continued to grow and work for me in the policy. And then they're making money in two places with the same dollar. And people will say that's too good to be true. And I'm not going to argue with people about it, but I just share that it does work and it is happening. Only thing that somewhat, we just come through the interest rate kind of went up and then down. And so there's stability in that, but that's a little bit harder to navigate because of the way different things are growing and not growing versus interest. As you kind of got to balance that all through, but that's for a different talk for sure. That's where you and Lacey come in and the team to kind of help you work through that and keep everything going in the right direction. Right.
For those listening out there, I mean, what Rob is talking about now is just really we do take the time. We're not going to disappear on you once you get something in place. And we do take the time to sit down with you afterwards and really encourage you, because this is for using during your life, not for dying. Like what we're talking about here, even though we use the basis of the thought process of the infinite banking concept to really utilize a dividend paying whole life insurance contract for your life purpose. I mean, we're living the definition of life insurance, because it's insurance during your life, that you're actually using. It's not just death insurance anymore. So thanks for speaking to that. Yes, there are definite inner workings. Perhaps this will generate even a little bit more curiosity for you to read your book, because obviously, Rob, I think you're still happy with using it, even though there is an interest rate that is charged for the use of taking a policy loan. But at the same time, you're saying that it's still growing at the same time, even though you have it in use.
Absolutely. And I mean, the interest is money going back to the company that you own, that you're owner of, right? And so we need to remember that. Plus, every lending institution, and I don't have anything against, like the lenders of the world, but they charge you interest on money, and that goes to them. And that's just the cost of money and the cost of doing business. And so why not have that circulating back to you versus going to someone else as much as you're able?
Yeah, 100%. So with you saying that, I take it that's one of the aspects that kept you engaged with all of this?
Yes, and knowing, I guess, the other side of that coin is, like, I've had meetings with other life insurance providers because I have a couple other policies.
Yeah.
And having a sit down with them, and at the end of the sit down being like, they realize, like, okay, this guy actually has a pretty good idea, or has an idea, maybe it's not good, but has been shown the ways of this life insurance, like how this can work for you, how this, I actually had the one gentleman thought that I could become I could take it up in my spare time. I don't have spare time, and that's not my forte, but I just have an understanding of it all, and knowing how it can work for you. And then you put in your paid up addition. And the first time that I did it, it was put in, I can't remember the exact dollar, but somehow the life insurance company has a multiple that they can give you. Like, so $5,000 actually buys you, say, 10 or 12, or it'll be different for everybody, and the number will be wrong, but it's just the principle that the 5,000 come back at like $20,000 of paid up additions. And then I knew exactly, when you see that, and you know that as you age, and as you get closer to age 100, your cash value chases your death benefit, and you've just supercharged your growth of your policy. And then as because time's going to go by, whether or not you're doing something proactive or not, it's inevitable. And nobody gets out of this alive. So tonight, like, I have a lot of life insurance on myself, and that's okay. And I have no worries. If something were to happen to me tomorrow, everybody's okay, because I've taken steps to work with you guys and build a system within a policy that allows me to have coverage, so that if something were to happen, everybody be well looked after. And that's a huge weight off your shoulders. I mean, in agriculture, in this business, the dollar figures that we work with are large, and they're only getting bigger. And so, if something were to happen, and there would be sufficient funds to cover off all the debts, and all the any outstanding bills would all be paid up, and there's just, my kids would be able to go to whatever school they wanted. Even, it's not easy to think about, but it's part of it, right? And nobody plans to graduate on to the next life, so, or whatever you want to call that, but it happens. So why not be semi-prepared and make the most of it, I guess.
Mm-hmm. What I love about what you're talking about here, I mean, when I got my life insurance license back in 2010, it was with the very intention to share the infinite banking concept. So I didn't arrive into this business being a insurance person prior to that. And probably for the first 5 or 6 years, like all I really focused on was really learning how to share this effectively in the Canadian marketplace. And it was really all with the sheer focus of, okay, replacing like who owns the debt in my life, right? Becoming your own banker. And this was the financial tool in order to do that. And then the first 5, 6 years, I'll consider that my university in sharing the infinite banking concept. And then, I recall one of the first times, one of the risks in doing IBC sometimes is, well, in anything, because of the very nature of the financial tool in it of itself, there is a scheduled payment, whether you choose it to be monthly or whether you choose it to be annually, that if you can't work or something happens in life, there's going to be when there's a down moment in your life, like one of the folks that I had, I think he got into a pretty big accident and it really impacted his way to make regularly scheduled payments. And that was the first time where I realized that the license that I had could do more than just serve people in IBC. I also just realized too, when the first person passed away that I had to deliver a death claim to, this isn't just for becoming your own banker, which I think is like my main focus because I want to help people keep as much money in their pocket because it can only increase the quality of one's life. But having a life insurance license is also is the cherry on top. And you've been talking about it this whole entire time in the sense that it gives you, the extra bonus in doing this is that you're taking care of your family at the same time.
Absolutely.
So what we haven't really touched on is just like, how have you, how does it give you peace of mind in your farming operations?
The flexibility of it all, you have a really good month as far as sales go, and you have some money that's going to kind of sit in your hands for a window of time. You can put that out. You can put it into a paid up edition, and then you can come back and pull it out when you need it. But the fact that I've kind of changed slightly how I look at it, and it's more of a I look at it as I'm saving money. And so, I don't really have a tax-free savings account because I choose to put it into my life insurance policy rather than a tax-free savings account, as an example. The flexibility of it all, like as far as the terms is when you pay it back, and then what you use the money for, right? So whether you take it out for operating or to pursue an opportunity in some sort of other business venture is up to you. And there's nobody going to tell you on the other end, no, or that's a terrible idea. Whether it's good or bad, it's the totally freedom. And as the thing with my first life insurance policy, when I learned about this, I actually had a substantial cash value in there because I was already been contributing for like 10 or so years at that point. And I was actually able to, we went through a bad drought and some rougher years, and I was able to just take that money out and use it. And that particular company, not the company, but the salesman that I was working with was kind of trying to talk me out of that at the beginning. And then I kind of explained to him what was going on. And at the end, I said, is this not just like it? There is no application process really, correct? Like I'm entitled to that money, am I not? And at the end, he said, yeah, you are. And I said, it's really not going to affect my policy growth if I understand this correctly. And he said, no, you're correct. You just have to pay interest. And I said, but I'm paying interest kind of in a roundabout way to myself, am I not? And he said, you are. And I said, so why do I want to go ask the bank for some more money to get through this spell when I really don't need to? And he said, well, I guess you don't have to. and then you instantly set up a repayment plan at the same time. And so, you just kind of leave that come out as a monthly payment and then you carry on. And for me, these cattle there seems to be some really big upswing here. So then I actually pulled money out and invested that in livestock, and it's a really good deal. But it's kind of it was quietly building up, and then here's an opportunity, and you just kind of remember that you still have this, and the gentleman that I work with from that company now knows that I have an understanding and he just tells me he's very straightforward and doesn't try and talk me out of anything or want me to not do something. He's just like, okay, yeah, the money will be in your account within 10 business days, and it shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Away you go.
Yeah, it's interesting, the experience that you have with different advisors, so those of you who have life policies have your own experiences with advisors that you work with. And it's interesting that this advisor initially said, I wouldn't advise against that, because it'd be interesting to see what really caused him to think that. However, it doesn't really matter. He's not here to advocate for himself. What I would say is that when you do take out a policy loan, again, it's yours to contractually do that. And there is no question about, I will never, or no advisor should ever say, what do you need it for? Because that creates less autonomy. And also it's truly actually none of our business. Like, paying it back is good stewardship of your money, because then it's just like a line of credit. If you're treating your money the same way that you would if you were borrowing from a bank, then great. The positive thing about this is that if you all of a sudden had some just unfortunate events happen that were out of your control and you couldn't make that payment back, it's completely private. And there's not going to be any collections. It's not going to diminish your credit rating. And again, I do not advocate, but if you cannot pay it back right away, it's actually less risk to the life company, because at the end of the day, if you end up prematurely passing, it's less money that they actually have to come up with to pay your beneficiaries out.
Absolutely. And the statements reflect that.
Yeah. And so I guess with all that being said, what are some of the differences? What would you, to shamelessly put a plug in for ourselves, Rob, what is the general difference between working with a regular life insurance broker who doesn't know anything about infinite banking versus working with someone like ourselves who specialize and build their entire practice around the infinite banking process?
Well, yes. So I was kind of thinking about this the last couple of days, because there's Dave Ramsey just absolutely hates life insurance. Thinks it's so foolish. Mm-hmm. And I don't listen to him anymore on that front, because he doesn't understand what, and I know people have debated with him and tried to talk to him about it and whatever. That's besides the point. But, and I was thinking, what analogy could I use that a farmer would understand? And to me, it's like the salesman who's going to sell you the latest and greatest tractor. And there's a computer in there that can do absolutely almost everything for you. They don't know how to use it, so they don't talk to you about it. And it's like there's so many layers to this. And if you don't understand it, then people will structure policies however it fits, whether it's to fit their best kickback or as the advisors, maybe they will make more money if they set it up a certain way. I've heard of that being a thing, different things like that. And then, so they'll set it up so it won't work for you the way that it should. It's like you go into a car, you want the Ferrari and you come out with the Volkswagen Beetle because it's had a better commission for Joe or whoever sold it to you. And then, the first gentleman that sold me life insurance, and nothing against him at all, I have no hard feelings, but he was more into, this was kind of like a setup already, kind of a widely designed package for the masses. When I went to work with you, it was, we're going to do this and we're going to add this, and this will be here for, this rider will be set up like this for X amount of years, and it was very tailored to my needs. And you take into consideration everything, and then you fast forward and you're constantly trying to educate and show people how they can use it, different options. The behind the scenes work that you guys do is second to none. And I've never left a phone call or a Zoom meeting with you guys and been like, oh, they were sure trying to sell me something. You know, you leave a call with you and Lacey, and at the end, there's like, is there anything else that we can do for you? Like, is there any other questions about this? And as we go down this journey together, it's been like my understanding and learning has been, yeah, it's irreplaceable. And then you get into versus someone who's just going to sell you that policy, and then you never really hear from them again until you got something, you know, you contact them for a particular reason. There's no proactive approach to furthering knowledge and trying to transfer knowledge. And like, this isn't going to be for everybody. It's just not, and that's okay. But if you go down the path with you and Lacey, you're going to come out knowing that whether or not you move forwards or you don't, you'll still have a really clear understanding of what that looked like. And then I know lots of people in lots of good friends that, you know, it didn't quite work initially when we talked about it, and then they followed up with speaking to you. But then a couple of years down the road, some things change and finances change slightly, and they revisit it because now it makes sense, and away you go. So it's a very unique experience, and you definitely don't want someone to get a life insurance policy just so you get your commission, because it's just nothing. There isn't an ounce of you guys that doesn't make sense to you guys. Like, it just doesn't make sense to you guys, but it's just not. I have a feeling that if I was to say I want to do this, say it was a great deal, it looked like a great deal, and it wasn't, that you guys would say, well, Rob, let's just stop and talk about this perceived product that you want to jump into, because it looks good, but here's something else, here's the things you need to know before we do it. And we really don't see that being a fit. If you want to carry on, that's up to you. But whether or not, like, I don't know I'm not really doing a very fair job of explaining this, relaying this, but it's second to none. And your knowledge and tailoring things to make things work for the particular individual, in my experience, has been exceptional.
Oh, well, thank you so much for those really kind words. I think, to be fair, is just really being very conscientious of that, working with a regular insurance broker who doesn't truly understand this. Reading those same books that I have behind me make them just enough to be dangerous. But there is a lot to nurturing, right? Like implementing this, and it is a different way of being. So we, those of us who do share infinite banking and who are authorized through the Nelson Nash Institute do it because this is a calling. This is more than just a paycheck, because we really do have our work cut out for us in the sense of helping those overcome their thoughts about insurance if there's resistance. We do have our work cut out for us in the sense of the servicing. The servicing is, bar none, there's just a lot of servicing that comes with those who take on infinite banking. There's just a lot more work to it. And I am just as excited. I learn just as much from you, Rob, as I do from having other conversations with other people, or just me purely putting in the time of because I can't even believe it. It's started in 2010 and now it's 2025. Whew. Nelly, time goes by so quick, but I love growing. I love growing with my clients. And every time you come back and you share things with me, there's something else that I can do to really grow with my clients for life. And Nelson, who really conceived of the infinite banking concept, really used dividend paying whole life insurance to the advantage of, his life and his family's life, right? This is about, doing our best to live, our best life possible, right? And it just so happens to be that, a part of that is the ability to keep as much money as possible and doing it in a way that you feel like you have autonomy and control. So yeah, I do really appreciate you sharing your thoughts about how just things are a lot different. And yeah, by all means, we love supporting people who decide that this is something that they want to do. Coming back to things just to give people a little bit of perspective, you had policies before you met me, and they started back like almost well over 20 years ago, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then by the time you came to me, I mean, that's coming almost 5-6 years ago now. So even having prior to meeting with me, even though your earlier policies that you set up 20 years ago weren't set up by me and weren't necessarily set up, in the way to for using during your life per se, but the principles are still there. The base contract of what it is still similar. And you have living proof that you can do that with policies that were much older than the one that I had set up for you. So I just think that's amazing.
Yeah, it made it so that I was, as I started down the journey, I could already see what 10 years out could look like or had, but you don't really think about it unless you're looking at it. It's not something that you wake up in the morning and say, well, I'm going to max out my life insurance policy. That's not very many people wake up in the first thing, that's what comes to mind. But, it's just it's a really good tool in the toolbox. And I'm very open-minded farmer operator. And so my whole family is. So, looking at different ways of doing things is just part of it. And like you say, you're constantly growing and evolving and changing and adapting. And I really look forward to the future that the next generation, my future, obviously, but what is being set up for generations to come as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm really excited.
Lever.
Mm-hmm. And we're just with where you're at right now. I mean, the journey is just it definitely started with you, but I'm excited for when you're able to have those conversations and really live the experience of keeping the money in the family, being able to have that capacity to have those specific, interesting conversations around financing whatever their endeavors are, whether it's to start buying more pigs or cows or start crop farming, but the money's within the household, or financing the car or financing their education. But it's all done internally without having to necessarily feel like they need to go to an external lender. Like going to the external lender is like plan B, rather than the fact that you're already creating an environment where it can stay just private.
Right. In-house. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then that doesn't even include my excitement for you about how this can really help be a supplement to when if you decide to just not do business in the farming world anymore.
I would probably be putting in a claim at that point, but anyway.
Yes, that's awesome. Okay, well, I think, from nuts to bolts, to your present journey, I thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing all that you could around this. Unless there's anything else that you'd like to say or leave a thought in terms of a thought for those who are looking into this.
I would just say, don't rule it out because it seems like it's almost too good to be true, or that it's in a roundabout way a scam, because I've been doing this for quite a while now, and that's not what it's about. So just have the courage to just try, or to, fully exhaust your resources learning about it, and then, to take this, you could start off at whatever level you'd like, but just to try it. And if it seems like something that you can do, that you have the discipline to do, then it would be well worth your efforts.
Thank you so much, Rob. Thank you. All right, so just hang tight, Rob. And for everyone else, we'll see you in the next session.
So glad you leaned in with us on the WinEH podcast. We truly hope you're feeling more informed and empowered to take another step towards optimizing your financial life. Right now, make sure you hit subscribe so you can keep growing and learning with us. Until next time, we wish you prosperity in every area of your life.